Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me, for including me in the program. So my name is Joost. I'm at UCL. I'm currently visiting Harvard. I'm in the strategy group, so I do not have an econ background, but feel free to ask me questions anyway. So I do a lot of work on platforms, in similar type of context as you all have been working on and talking about today, but I guess from a slightly different perspective. I also organize a yearly platform competition conference that is aimed to be interdisciplinary. So we welcome submissions from marketing, economics, information systems, and management. First year was in Bocconi, second year was at UCL in London, and this year will be in Madrid. But what I'll talk about today is platform papers. So it's a repository and a website that I've been running for a few years now, where I keep track of the literature on platform competition across the fields of management, marketing, economics, and information systems. I'll talk a little bit about how it came about, what it is, where you can find it, and what you can find, and then also I'll highlight some patterns in the data specifically geared towards a marketing audience. The project starts with a literature review paper on platform competition that I wrote together with Melissa Schilling at NYU. So I do a lot of work on platforms. I observe that a lot of the questions that platform scholars ask across different disciplines are quite similar, maybe with slightly different language, slightly different objectives, but there is a lot of shared interest, if you will. And so I wanted to do this review across marketing, economics, information systems, and management. And luckily, the Journal of Management let us do that. So the paper came out in 2020. It reviews the literature up until 2019. And we identified 333 articles published on platform competition. Now, one of the things that I quite don't like about literature reviews is that it can be really difficult to understand what is the underlying data, what are the references that went into writing a literature review. And so what I wanted to do is simply create a website, a repository, where I posted those 333 references for others to see who are interested in the paper, and so that they know what we're working from. And once that was kind of there, it was easy for me to kind of keep maintaining that on a monthly basis. So that's kind of what created the repository. The paper itself has been doing really well. So it's been downloaded more than 55,000 times from the journal. It constantly ranks within kind of the top 10 or top 15 most read papers in the journal. And it has over 500 citations. And I think that is perhaps in small part also due to kind of this service that I've built on top of it. All right, so this is the references dashboard where I keep track on a monthly basis of all the articles that are being published in platform competition. And I've created this dashboard. It's on platformpapers.com, where you can just do a global search, or you can filter the data by year or by a particular journal, by field, by its method. And then there's 4 themes that I'll talk a little bit about later. So what is the underlying data? Where am I pulling these references from? So it's a Boolean search on Web of Science based on a number of keywords. So platform, complementer, two-sided market, multi-sided market, network effect, network externality, system market, winner-take-all, ecosystems, or installed base. And so it tracks whether those terms are included in the title of these articles. And then I track 56 different journals. And the way to think about this is it's mostly FT50 plus a handful of journals that are either newer or well-known for publishing platform competition research, such as IJIO, IJRM, GEMS, JIE, QME. And then so every month an email comes in with these search results, and then I kind of screen them for relevance, because sometimes not so relevant papers kind of slip through the cracks. And I add them to the database, and then there's also kind of manual coding in terms of what the theme of the paper is, what is the method of the paper, what is the empirical context of the paper studies, and so forth. For the paper itself, what we then also did was to check if we are missing out on any relevant papers, is to basically look at which papers does this initial set of papers cite to, and are there any relevant papers that are cited many, many times that we overlooked, and so we then include them in the database. And then for the website, platformpapers.com, what tends to happen quite a lot is I have people reaching out to me saying, hey, my paper isn't included in your database. Can you please include it in the database? And most of the times I do, and sometimes I don't. Come up with a friendly excuse. I'm not checking the journal, or it's completely irrelevant, or some other reasons. So as you can see, and I'll talk about that more in the next slide. There's now 748 articles included in this reference dashboard. Then once I had that up and running, a couple of years ago, I thought, wouldn't it be great if some of these insights are then also translated for a wider audience? And so what I started doing is every month I invite one author whose paper is included in my references dashboards to write a blog, translating their findings, their paper to a broader audience. And so that's published on platformpapers.substack.com. I think now I have close to 60 blogs up there. There's, I think, over 1,500 subscribers, a lot of folks from industry, from policy, from regulations that are subscribed to this blog. And good blog posts could, be read upwards of 2,000 times on Substack alone. So I think it's been a great way to kind of make this literature more available to a wider audience. And if your article is included in the database and you're interested in writing a blog, do please reach out to me, and I'm happy to evaluate that. So those are kind of the two main components. There's platformpapers.com, where you have this references dashboard and then a bunch of data visualizations, and then there's a Substack with the blogs. Let me now also tell you a little bit about what kind of the data says. So there's close to 750 articles included in the database since 1985. 371 were added in the last 5 years alone, so the literature has more than doubled in over 5 years. And last year, 2024, saw the largest number of papers published, so 102 papers were added to the database last year. But in 2025, so far, there have only been 11 articles added to the database. And so that's kind of interesting. My conjecture is that, and I also observe it here, is that I think platforms have become more kind of part of our everyday economic life. And so there's fewer papers maybe specifically looking at platform phenomenon, but just studying phenomenon within platforms without really involving the platform paper. So it wouldn't get picked up by that search query. But that's just one conjecture. There is about a third of the papers globally are published in management journals, followed by economics, 29%, information systems, 22%, and then marketing, 16%. So marketing traditionally has been kind of the smallest cluster in the references dashboard. But marketing is definitely on the rise. So in 2024, marketing accounted for 24% of all the papers. So there seems to be a disproportionate recent interest in marketing research on platforms. That is interesting and noteworthy. So then let's have a look at kind of some marketing specific data points. So far, there have been 119 articles published in marketing journals to date on platform competition. And as you can see, there's quite a steep exponential increase in recent years, which is steeper than the general increase across the literature. The distribution of methodologies is about half of the papers use empirical estimation alone, about a third uses a model, and then let's say about 15% uses a combination of a model and data. I think a lot of the papers that we see today would fall in that category. And then there's a small group of papers that use other methodologies. This could be case studies or conceptual work. I've looked at, so what is the most studied empirical context within marketing? And so that's console video games. About 1 in 5 empirical papers in marketing journals estimate the data from the console video game setting, which is also highly reflective of the broader literature. I think gaming consoles tend to be seen as kind of the canonical platform setting, if you will. But it's good to see that there's no gaming paper here today, and I think neither there's one tomorrow. And then the most cited platform paper in marketing is this paper by Mir, Chintagunta, and Dubé in QME on PDAs. And so 37 of the platform papers included in the database cite to that paper. Again, I do not have an economics background, but you should feel free to ask questions if you have any. So let's have a look at kind of journals publishing platform paper research. The top 10 journals are kind of heavily dominated by IS journals. So management science, information systems research, MIS Quarterly, and JMIS. And also, if you look at within management science and you break it out by the desk where research is published, you see that the biggest cluster is in the IS desk at management science. So there's only one management journal in the top 10, and there's only one marketing journal in the top 10 here, which kind of suggests that there's a larger set of journals publishing platform competition research in those respective fields. And so here I've tallied the 9 journals in marketing publishing platform competition research. So the premier outlet is marketing science, followed by management science, the marketing desk, Journal of Marketing, JMR, IJRM, QME, Journal of Retailing, GEMS, and JCR. So yes. Looking a little bit at what these papers are on. So this is a word cloud based on the abstracts of the papers included in the database. The kind of a big cluster of work is on estimating network effects and kind of nuances to network effects. And in the review paper, we identify kind of 4 core themes of research on platform competition. So the first theme, which is kind of the biggest theme, is on network effects. So this is about how platforms are priced, subsidy side versus money side, or subsidization over time periods. How do platforms leverage network effects to kind of gain dominance? Then there's a second cluster of research that looks at kind of the platform's corporate scope. This could be either work on like Amazon vertically integrating into the seller space and what the implications of that are, or platforms merging horizontally, or firms that aren't traditionally platforms becoming platforms. The third cluster is work on platform orchestration. So what are the actions that platforms take and how does it affect kind of behavior on the platform? How does it affect competition within the platform? And then lastly, there's a bucket that we theme heterogeneity, and kind of it's one of the key marketing papers that comes to mind is what is the effect of superstar products on platform on the strength of network effects. Looking at what are the empirical contexts that this literature is looked at. Well, as I alluded to earlier, video game consoles is a big cluster of the work. But that throne has recently been taken over by mobile apps. So mobile apps is kind of the biggest empirical context in the data, followed by video game consoles. Ride-sharing services are right up there. And then we're increasingly seeing papers looking at multiple empirical contexts, which is quite cool. So here I've plotted kind of the evolution of work looking at video game consoles versus mobile apps and how mobile apps has started to become more prevalent. But there's 390 empirical papers in the data set, and they look at data from 175 different empirical contexts. And there's some really creative contexts looking at platform competition. dynamics, such as work on beauty salons, work on Chinese novel writing platforms. There's some authors looking at academic journals as two-sided markets. And then obviously Chiara and co-authors have this great paper on pet sitting platforms. So if you have a particular interest in a particular empirical context, it's very likely that there's a paper in the database that is looking at this setting. All right, so again, a look at kind of the top-sided platform papers. So with every entry that I add to the database, I also collect all the citations that the paper makes, and so that's in a separate data set. So I can see which papers are being cited to. And so the top 10 most cited papers by other platform papers are kind of mostly the econ classics. I've listed them here: Jean and Trudeau, Katz, Shapiro, Armstrong. And we also did a little bit of citation and analysis, and what you see is kind of the literature started out in economics, and so there's citations are to economics articles very early on, and then as you start to see marketing and information systems and management kind of starting to write about platforms, initially you see that those subfields cite to economics, but then as those literatures form, they start to become citing more internally to their own, and also to other subdisciplines. But economics is kind of an exception. Economics just keeps citing to other economics papers. Make of that what you will, but that was quite interesting. So, you know, everyone is quite willing to cross site, but economics authors in the database. So, and then I've also kind of tallied the top-sided marketing papers in the database. So again, Nair Chittukunta is the top-sided paper. Well, and then you can see for yourself. Go Ken, you're in there. Name and shame. But a lot of these papers, I think, in marketing are about kind of estimating network effects or different strengths of network effects.
No, so one discussion that Joost and I were having before is, you know, to me, an advertising transaction is fundamentally a platform transaction, and if retailers are platforms, which might be debatable, sometimes might not be. Like I think the marketing literature has used different jargon for fundamentally platform concepts. And so if anybody has ideas for additional seeds for expanding this database, maybe that's a productive thing that could come out of this discussion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, for starters, if you have what you think is a platform paper, but it doesn't use that same type of terminology, feel free to send it to me and I'd be happy to add it to the database. Okay, so and then I just thought I'd look at the 10 most recently added platform papers published in marketing journals, and here they are. I looked at who is on the selection committee for WOPA, and I found 2 authors. I think if I search correctly, and then here are 3 recent blogs on platform papers that are written by marketing authors. Jessica Fong has a cool blog on network effects in online dating. There's this Journal of Marketing paper on the platformization of brands, which is quite interesting. And then Andre Fredkin has a blog on reviews in Airbnb. And again, I'd be very happy to add more marketing flavored blogs to platform papers, so feel free to reach out to me. Okay, so thank you for your attention. Please subscribe, please share with your doctoral students, please send me your paper suggestions, and if you're down to write a blog, I would be very happy to accommodate you. Thank you very much. So
next we have dinner. If you'll just give me one minute